So I think sex is something that shouldn't be just like you go there and then you do it and boom, bang, done. There is more to it.
So imagine being told for 200 years that homosexuality is a sin against nature and it's a criminal offense.
The Kama Sutra teaches you about desire, teaches you about relationships, it teaches you how to conduct yourself in marriage, even teaches you how to commit adultery, really.
Hinduism is one of the fastest growing religions in Australia, and almost 2/3 of the population is under the age of 35. So what does this faith system teach young people about sex? Well, it's complicated. I'm Siobhan and I'm a religion and ethics reporter for the ABC, and I want to find out how cultural norms, colonial legacies, and the Kama Sutra have influenced how young Hindus see sex today. First up, I'm going to meet a young fashion designer whose work taps into sexuality, race, and religion. When you were growing up, how was queerness represented to you?
So the only concept of queerness that I knew of was hijras, and hijras are the third gender in India. I've always had that part of me question why. Why is there this dichotomy? Like on one hand, you say that these people have magical powers and they're auspicious, but then you don't treat them well, they don't have the same privileges. They have to basically beg to survive.
At what point did you realize that you were queer, and then how did you come out to your family and community?
I never really explored it until I got here, until we moved to Australia, and then in Tasmania I kind of grew quite strong, this reckoning with my inner self and my true self. And then in Darwin, when I moved away from my first job, I was able to actually explore this inner side of me that was kind of hidden, kind of not hidden for the better part of my life. I came out to my friends first, I think. And I was really shocked that they were fine with it. I was expecting some sort of, I don't know, negative reaction. And then I came to a point where I was like, okay, I need to tell my parents. And I thought I need to tell my mum first, because I've always been close with her. And when I came out to her, she said, is there some problem with having sex? And I was like, no, that's not it. I just like men as well as women. And she was like, we'll cross the bridge when we get to it. Just focus on your studies right now.
That negativity you've seen towards queerness and experience, where do you think it comes from? You know, is it faith? Is it culture? Is it the colonial legacy in India?
Yeah, so from the research that I've done and from the research that's out there, queerness always existed. It was never criminalized to the extent of actually legislating it as a criminal offense. It only happened when India was colonized. And since then, the trajectory of this debate was closed. It's really interesting because in the law that was brought over by the colonizers, it said that it's an unnatural act, and those are the same words that my dad used. And so that just goes to show that when you grew up with that kind of mindset that homosexuality is going against nature, how much of that would be based in faith or by religion? Or how much of that was just law-based?
One of the most prolific erotic books comes from India. It's the Kama Sutra. Is Kama Sutra something that you were told about growing up in India?
Oh no, we heard about it from online sources or from peers. Oh look, there's this thing that has sex things. It's funny, or it's like interesting, it's intriguing. That was the only context. And then it was the Western context of Western glorification of Kama Sutra. To me, Kama Sutra is much more than just the act of sex. It's the union of two bodies. It's the chemical reaction you get just by being in the vicinity of each other.
Speaking to Lakesh, it's clear that colonialism in India had a huge impact on the LGBTQIA+ community and how many Hindus perceive queerness. But I want to find out if Britain's legacy had an effect on sex in general or on Hinduism itself.
Hinduism is not a religion like the other religions, include the Abrahamic religions like, say, Judaism, Islam or Christianity. And when the British came to India, and they were absolutely astounded and somewhat horrified to find the cacophony, if you like, of gods, the polyvalent nature of the society, where varieties of people believed in totally different things, including local deities or trees or forests or all kinds of things. And they then combined all of this under the term Hinduism. And the thing is that the British couldn't, for a lot of things, they didn't actually do anything. They made laws, and the reason they didn't do anything was because there was a relatively small number of them compared to the population of India. So they couldn't go around the whole place stamping out the hijras and forcing them to, stop doing what they were doing. But what they did was actually create a kind of social construct where anything that deviated from their norm of ideas about the family, about sexuality, about male and female behavior was seen as deviant.
But the secrecy and social expectations imposed on sex feel like they're at odds with Hinduism's sacred text on eroticism and fulfillment, the Kama Sutra.
The Kama Sutra is actually written almost like a manual, and if you actually read the better translations, it's actually quite boring, because it's actually telling you how to increase your pleasure during sex and how to conduct yourself and so on. The spiritual element is that because it's part of the sutras, that's why it's called the Kama Sutras, and this is all about how to live your life like a good person, a person who will then be liberated. In some ways, the way the Kama Sutra treats sex is probably the most practical way to treat it. I think we have actually turned sex into something so complicated that it's now very hard to disentangle it from it's two sort of things. One is pleasure and the other is procreation.
We live in this age where porn and, erotic material is way more accessible than before, but I wasn't expecting Debolina to call the Kama Sutra boring. I'm curious to know if other young Hindu women feel the same way. So we're going to meet a radio producer who's from Nepal, and she now works in Sydney.
So in my society, like in Hindu society and moreover in Nepali society, I have seen a lot of patriarchy. So when it comes to the topic of sex, it's always more about men, men doing it, men getting satisfied, and then the women are just there like as if they're just supposed to be there. So I've seen and heard of many women who don't even know what orgasm is, even if they've had sexual relationships multiple times. So I think that's a big problem, because sex is not just about, going there and doing it and reproducing babies, but it's also about the people involved in it having fun in a good way and with consent. And it's expected to know what sex is, but my parents know that I know what sex is, but they've never told me what sex is. So my understanding could be something different. Maybe I could be understanding I should have sex to please my boyfriend, but there was nobody to teach me that you should have sex only when you want to have it. And I think that's a big problem. I think a book like this would teach couples to enjoy the art of sex, really, because I think when you see something like this, you're sex is considered a taboo in today's society, but people have been doing it for ages, and here it is. There's ways of making it more colorful. So why is it still a taboo when it's part of our daily lives?
As a young Hindu woman, is there an expectation that you need to marry a Hindu man?
Yes, so this is a very interesting question. I think there is an expectation from my own parents or family or the society as a whole for a Hindu girl to marry a Hindu guy. Now, there's different reasons for this. One reason might be that people are kind of narrow-minded they don't want it's still not in the understanding of many that we can have interreligious, interfaith marriages. Now, there are some practical reasons also why they don't accept it, because, for example, a person, like a girl or a boy, like any gender, marries someone from a different religion, then they might have difficulty adjusting to their faith and their culture, their family, and stuff like that. And again, when they have children, like which religion, which faith will the children belong to?
And what were you taught by your family and your religious community about sex when you were growing up?
In schools, like even the teachers were awkward about explaining us in detail about those things. And as we grow up, like everyone is in their, like when they're in their teenage, everyone's curious to know what it is, but then nobody talks about it in the family. But then you know that some of your friends are doing it. But many people don't even know what consent is, because all they learn about sex is from movies or from porn, and that's really not a good way to learn about it. So if there will be that open communication between parents and children, or between a figure of authority and the child, then they will know what is right and what is wrong. Like they will know when to say no, and they will know that when a relationship gets toxic,